Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome to the first virtual men's forum hosted by the Ohio Urban Community Action Network. My name is Yvonne Sherrill, and I proudly serve as the CEO of this fantastic network. I join you in my background as a nonprofit leader and executive in the nonprofit sector. So don't fret, I know this is a men's forum. Again, I'm only here briefly to say good morning to you. And then after that, I am ready to just give you your space and looking forward to listening to all of the conversation. But I want to say thank you and a sincere, and we were just talking about this earlier, a very sincere and genuine thank you. Thank you for all of what you all do. Everything from just getting up in the morning, because sometimes it's hard. We're living in some very unwell times, and oftentimes it can be a little difficult just to pull yourself out of bed. So thank you for being parents and grandparents. Thank you for being friends to people who need you at the most time, or a caregiver, whatever it is that you do in your day-to-day. I want to say with a heartfelt appreciation, thank you for doing all of that. And again, just so you know that my colleague Sharon and I, we may stay on just a little longer just to help you through some chat room conversations, some filters, and some social media. But this forum is all about men for men. So before I introduce our co-chairmen, let me give you just a few housekeeping items for today's forum. The event is being recorded and we will capture live on OUCAN social media platform. So as I mentioned before, we will be posting to our Twitter, Facebook, social media, Instagram, and so forth. You will be able to access the recording at a later time on our YouTube channel. So Sharon will populate the chat room so you can grab the link to our YouTube channels. This is where all of our recordings and our events are being stored. So you'll be able to view it later. This is an open forum, and we welcome a diverse conversation from men from the community action agencies as well as the nonprofit sector. So we hope that you'll find freedom in just sharing. Just, it's almost kind of like a barbershop conversation. We've all kind of maybe seen, LeBron James shop. I know that there's a lot of conversations that happen in the barbershop. I have a son, and so we hope that you would just have freedom in having this conversation. The event evaluation is especially important to us. So we hope that you will take a moment and complete the evaluation at the end of today's forum. Again, my colleague Sharon will post the link to the evaluation in the chat room. And then lastly, we just invite you to also participate on social media. So if you are one of those people who have a Twitter account, Facebook, and you hear some good nuggets or something that you want to drop and share, we have all of the hashtags for today's forum in the chat room. So with that said, let's get back to it. Today's forum is important to me as a public administrator, but more important to me as a Black woman with three very important men in my life: my son, my partner, and my brother, who all bring very valuable and unconditional contributions to my life. So I think I speak for a lot of women when I say that we are interested in supporting the men in our lives. We are interested in supporting the men in our personal and our professional developments and in your journey. And I have always had the pleasure of working with some very talented men who continue to pour into me. So now I'd like to introduce two of those men who I respect, admire, and have a pleasure of working with. Today's forum is being facilitated and cared for by our co-chairmen, Mr. Kerry Austin and Rudy Herter. Both Kerry and Rudy are members of the OUCAN roadmap team, which is comprised of the representatives from each of the OUCAN member agencies, and they provide advisory support and insight to me as the CEO. So first up, Kerry Austin is a professional development, training, and education coordinator with Step Forward in Cleveland, Ohio. And in Kerry's role, he manages the training and educational workshops for eligible clients within Greater Cleveland in the areas of increasing digital literacy, providing effective customer service, and executing effective job search campaigns. Kerry is in his third year with Step Forward within his professional development division, and the main goal of this group is to provide resources and training to propel citizens within Greater Cleveland towards career and or self-sustaining employment opportunities. One of the Kerry's quotes that I absolutely love is he says, "Think of all things that you can accomplish with taking those first series of steps." Isn't that always the way? You just got to take that first step, which I keep trying to tell myself because I need to lose weight. So I need to take that one step. So thank you, Kerry. I feel emboldened now. And now my brother, Rudy Herter, has been the Human Resource Officer at Stark County Community Action Agency in Canton since September of 2013. Prior to that, Rudy spent 20 plus years in large corporate America working in human resources, specializing in employee relations and labor law issues. He values his time as a charter member of the OUCAN roadmap team, and he sees that it makes an impact to the network, not only in his agency, but the network as a whole. So it is now my pleasure to hush and turn it over to Kerry and Rudy.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Yvonne, for such a warm welcome. And gentlemen, I'm glad that you're here today. I think you're going to get some good information out of this discussion that's coming up. In October 2022, during the OUCAN Leadership Summit, we experienced a considerable number of interests from our men's forum, we wanted to provide a platform for our male leaders in community action and human service agencies to just kind of address personal, professional issues that are germane or relevant to men. It's no secret that our agencies across the country are predominantly women, but we do have an active role in these agencies. So with the feedback, we went right away and we began. We had a survey and we began to formulate the foundation for this forum that we're doing today. What we learned was, like our women counterparts, we are equally interested in work-life balance, generational wealth, career mobility, and other issues that impact workplace and professional development. Now, in responding to more empirical data and feedback, every participant in today's forum, we did ask you to respond to one of 3 questions during registration. And just a quick reminder, in human services, we often talk about why we do what we do. What's your why and what keeps you going? We also ask, what drew you to your current agency and role? And then finally, we ask, what would people be surprised to learn about you? This could be professional or personal. These are important discussion questions as we move into our conversation today and create our circle or a sector of male practitioners and professionals as we are looking forward to participation with our engagement in today's discussion. So now, again, thank you guys for being here. Thank you all. I would like to turn this over to my fellow co-chair, Rudy.
Thanks, Kerry. Good morning again to everybody. And thank you to OUCAN for providing today's platform and discussion. Kerry was thorough and is going over the background for the forum and how we're at the place we're at. And I just wanted to share a little bit more about today's objectives. If we want to be serious about providing a balanced approach in male leadership and human services agencies and in strengthening our mental skills, we're looking to today's session to help us in a few different areas. We want to have this online forum so that we all can share our experiences and discuss topics that we have that are interesting and similar and mutual that we want to get out in the open. We want to create or further develop a community of support for men practitioners, public administrators, leaders, business owners, executives, and we want to develop a template for future forums. This is our initial men's forum, and it's going to not be the only one. So we want to make sure that if there's specific issues, events, whatever, that we can address those as well. So with that, we changed today's forum to be a little bit more free-flowing, or to have organic conversation, and we're looking forward to your participation and engagement. And before we introduce today's moderator, I want to pause to view our men's forum video.
Welcome to the first virtual Ohio Urban Community Action Network Men's Forum. This year's theme, Using Your Mental Strength, focused on issues and conversations for men, by men in urban community action agencies and social service organizations. Our mission is to empower Ohio's urban community action agencies through education, networking, and advocating for policies that alleviate poverty and promote self-sufficiency. We are the leading resources in breaking the cycle of poverty in urban Ohio that led us to this time now, 40 years later, with a network comprised of 10 agencies, a new CEO, the roadmap team, consultants, and the most caring, compassionate, and determined agency staff and leaders who provide hope, support, and opportunities for 60% of determined Ohioans. In the early 1980s, several community action agencies realized that due to Ohio's unique demographics, which meant that more large urban centers than any other state in the country, that networking to address issues collectively would be necessary. And therefore, OUCAN, formerly known as the Ohio Urban Resources System, was created by a group of charter members such as Malcolm Costa, Rodney Reasonover, and others. In 1985, the organization was completely incorporated to represent the needs and interests of Ohio urban poor families and residents. In 1997, the network hired former legislative consultant Larry Price. Price immediately teamed up with former state representative Barbara Sykes to lead a fight in the House to defeat the penny income tax increase that at that time was threatening to many of the Head Start programs. In 2021, former project manager Yvonne Sherrill became the network's first CEO, leading the day-to-day operations, building community relationships, advocacy, and was instrumental in the new name change. Last year, our leadership agreed to take a step back and really take inventory of how OUCAN and its agencies help shape legislation in order to improve the lives and opportunities of Ohio's urban communities. We committed to being honest about the places and spaces in which we occupy and the ways in which are most fitted to advance those policies and best practices within our scope of work. OUCAN's strength lie in the solid foundation that the organization was created over 37 plus years ago to be able to address the needs of urban communities. And since then, we have established a very large footprint and presence in low-income communities across Ohio, representing those 10 community action agencies. Through our strategic planning process, we identified the priority needs in the topical areas of early childhood education, housing, workforce development, thus creating the OUCAN advocacy agenda. Combined, these services make up 74% of the needs provided by the network collectively and in full alignment with the partnering agencies across the state. The goal of the advocacy agenda is to bridge together Ohio's community action agencies and again provide quality care in the areas of affordable housing, workforce development, and early childhood education and childcare. Over the last 3 decades, OUCAN Network has expanded to not only serve urban populations living in poverty, but also rural and suburban populations that are increasingly experiencing poverty. In 2018, OUCAN communities were home to more than 55% of all Ohioans, and today there are over 1.6 million poor people in Ohio, and 1 million of them live in OUCAN communities. The poverty rate overall in Ohio is 15%, and in OUCAN communities, it is 16%, where we serve 16 of the 88 counties. By expanding our reach, we also recognize the need to increase our infrastructure and capacity to support the 10 agencies. And our approach is always driven by 3 key values: compassion, community, and advocacy. Here you will see a list of our support and areas of achievement in which we're being able to provide services for our clients. We appreciate and thank our board of directors and staff from all 10 agencies for their time, for their leadership, and during this forum, we would like to especially acknowledge the OUCAN men and their leadership, beginning with our board vice chairman, the chair for our advocacy committee, and the president and CEO for Pathway Incorporated, Mr. J. Black Jr. We salute our immediate past board chair, Mr. Robert Bo Chilton, who is also the president and CEO for Impact Community Action Agency. Special thank you to our historian and chartered member, Mr. Malcolm Costa, who is also the president and CEO for Community Action Akron Summit. Another charter member and historian of the OUCAN network, Mr. Rodney Reasonover, and president and CEO for Stark County Community Action Agency. Next up, our well-dressed advocate, Mr. Van Nelson, who is the president and CEO for Trumbull County Community Action Partnership. And our two male members of the roadmap team and co-chairs for today's forum, Mr. Kerry Austin, who, as I mentioned before, serves on the roadmap team and is the professional development training and education coordinator for Step Forward. And our longest serving roadmap team member, chartered team member, who we absolutely respect and appreciate his history and what he brings to the table, Mr. Rudy Herter, who is the Human Resource Officer at Stark County Community Action Agency. At this time, we'd like to hear from our Vice Chairperson, Mr. Jay Black Jr.
Good day. I'm Jay Black, President and CEO of Pathway, Inc. in Toledo, Ohio. And I often get asked, what drew you to this work and why do you do what you do every day? Give you a little background on myself. I grew up in banking, a private sector guy, worked in politics for the first African-American mayor in Toledo for a while, and started my own business consulting company after that. I was having a great time, great life. And as Oprah Winfrey says, sometimes life happens and bad things can happen to good people. And that's exactly what happened to me. Very unfortunate set of circumstances happened to me, and I was really sort of down on my luck, economically speaking. And I had to reach out to a social service organization, and I didn't know at the time that that was really by divine providence. So I reached out to Pathway's predecessor, EOPA, Economic Opportunity Planning Association in Ohio, and for some short-term help. And I was one of those people who was raised never to accept a handout, work for everything that you get and receive, and work hard for it. So that's what I grew up with, and it became a core value of mine. But unfortunate set of circumstances happened, and I had to reach out to EOPA for some short-term help. And you can't believe how much pride I had to swallow to do that. But I was out of options. So I did. I was able to be helped. I was given a hand up and helped through this temporary, really difficult time in my life. And so I went back to the private sector, started my own company, business consulting company, off to the races and having a great time. But there was still a void in my life, something that was there that I needed to, there was a longing to be filled, and it wasn't happening in what I was doing. And although I was making a good living and having a pretty good time. So the unbeknownst to me, the position opened up here at Pathway to lead the organization, and some friends in the organization and on the board reached out to me and asked me if I would consider, leading Pathway. And I initially said, you know what? No, I'm not. I'm really a private sector guy, not really a public sector guy, or not really a nonprofit type guy. I'm used to either making money myself or helping other people make money. That was not really on the radar screen at the time. And then the light bulb went off, and I remembered when I needed a hand up, when life happened to me and bad things happened to a good person. And I thought, well, who's out there helping the J Blacks of the world? What organization is taking a leadership role in helping people who are in similar circumstances like me? Was not looking for a hand out, but looking for a hand up and some short-term help to help them get over the hump. And by divine providence, the two intersected, and I was reached out to again by some friends and board members of the organization, asked to consider it, and I did finally take a leap of faith after much thought and prayer, and decided to come to Pathway. The second question that I'm often asked is, again, why do you wake up in the morning? What's your purpose in life? And I've always been a person that used whatever platform they had at the time to try to help other people. That's just the way I was raised. But with Pathway, it's different because our market is the J Blacks who fell on hard times. So what keeps me motivated and keeps me coming to work every single day is an opportunity to help make a positive difference in somebody's life, an opportunity to offer a hand up versus a handout. And that's exactly what we do here at Pathway. Our mission is to help move people from poverty to self-sufficiency through our comprehensive programs, programming, and networks. And as you can tell from our 2022 numbers, we helped an awful lot of people and made a difference in an awful lot of people's lives here in Lucas County, Ohio in 2022. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you to Jay Black for sharing that. That was very powerful stuff. It is now my pleasure to introduce today's moderator, Mr. Lawrence Witherspoon. Lawrence Witherspoon is a product of the North Linden community in Columbus, Ohio, where he grew up as a child. Lawrence attended Como Elementary and Crestwood Middle School, then graduated from Brookhaven High School in 1996, where he excelled in both arts and athletics. He also attended Antonelli College and University of Cincinnati, receiving an associate's and bachelor's degree in commercial arts and graphic design. As he continued to pursue education and spiritual development, Lawrence Witherspoon found the love of his life at age 19 and now wife of 23 years, Barbara Witherspoon. Together, they have been blessed with 4 wonderful children. Lawrence is currently the director of the Center for Families' Voice of Groundwork Ohio, leading the center's work to elevate the voices of families for young children in early childhood policy and advocacy to achieve programmatic policy and practice changes at local, regional, and state levels. Lawrence is also a qualified mental health specialist and emotional intelligence implement strategist through the Institute for Health and Human Potential. Lawrence Witherspoon is also a licensed minister and in 2018 established Greater Love Outreach Ministries, a non-denominational ministry with a central focus on outreach for the community. This is going to be good. Please join us in welcoming Lawrence Witherspoon.
Thank you, Brother Rudy, for the formidable introduction. Good morning, brothers. I'm happy to be here and looking forward to this 2-part conversation for today's forum. As you heard, I have an extensive background in emotional intelligence, mental health, and ministry. So I share equal concern in all the spaces of charity, nonprofit, and public administration. It is my understanding that we will be breaking down a 2-part discussion. First, we're going to dive into using our mental strength, in which we further examine conversations on practical tactics and strategies to exercising your mental health strength and leadership skills in the workplace. A note, we capitalized the MEN and mental for a reason. It is important that we have a voice in the inclusion topic about serving clients working within a female dominant industry. I have firsthand in that for over the last 14 years. And after that, we will take a 10-minute break and come back for our next discussion, The Whole Man, in which we will talk about the need for more than ever before, the balance of responsibilities in the home and workplace, to learn from other colleagues on ways to master work-life balance. So think about that. The only rule that we have for today is that this is an open forum that drives our objectives, creation of goals and outcomes for personal and professional growth. That means we need and want to talk about, to use this information to share. Thinking of today's conversation as a radio version of the barbershop, talking or hanging out with your homeboys, or the one-on-one conversations with your significant others, or a career coach. In whatever way you download information today, or upload for muscle memory in this conversation for all of us. And so with that said, let's get into it. So the first question is on deck, comes from the Medical News Today article, Men's Mental Health. Man up is not the answer. This article demonstrates that surveys from around the world find that men everywhere are reluctant to talk about their mental health and more likely to die by suicide than females. While this is a daunting statistic, the more unfortunate stereotype is that men are more reluctant to discuss their mental health well-being, furthering an unhealthy stigma that's stereotypes that men don't express or don't know how to express their feelings, making it among race, ethnicities, and income brackets that suggest men avoid getting help or enhancing their tools in expounding mental health, mental health struggles or concerns. So the first question I pose to you all on today is, how do you as leaders in your workplace or community use your mental strength to navigate uncomfortable spaces or uncharted territories in the workplace? So that's our first question. You all are open to answer that question.
Lawrence, I'll jump in there. Operating from a point of uncomfortableness is always a challenge. And one of the techniques or processes I've found successful is just to take it one step at a time. I know for myself, I often want to look at the whole picture, the whole thing, what this means and what this impact is going to be, and then what's the next step is. And when I catch myself doing that, you do get a little anxiety because I'm thinking about all the steps that got to fall behind it. And sometimes we just got to focus on this next step. And when I do that, I seem to get a little bit more comfortable, especially if it's uncharted area.
Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else? This is an open conversation. How do we as leaders in your workplace or community use your mental strength to navigate uncomfortable spaces or uncharted territories in the workplace?
I'll jump in for a second, if I may. And I think we as men, specifically as Black men, we need to be honest with ourselves and recognize our humanity. And unfortunately, we were raised in a country and an environment that sort of conditioned us, culturally conditioned, I should say, to believe that, I think, as you said, Pastor, I heard somebody say, to man up, during difficult times. Well, that's not always reality. And we need to be honest with ourselves and understand and admit that we do need help sometimes. And what has worked for me and has taken me some time to get to this point is to try to surround myself with a support group that I can dump on. And it has to be the kind of support group that can help you and understand the issues. And fortunately for me, I have a brother within the OUCAN network that I can do that with. And I've also got some folks locally that are in this support group of mine that I can go to and just be honest with, candid with, without fear of being condemned or judged. And also, it's very important that we have people within our support group that are going to tell us when we're wrong. Not simply just going to listen, but I've had several of the folks in my support group tell me, Jay, don't go down that road. And this is why. I've been down that road before, and this is what happened. So we can do, if we can do that, it helps make us not only stronger, but I say this, I can't help anybody if I'm an emotional wreck, if I am sick and broke all the time. I can't help anybody. And by the way, there's women in my support group as well. It's not just men, it's women. So if you haven't developed that support group, I would highly encourage you to do that.
Thank you for sharing that, Jay. Anyone else want to elaborate on this part before we go on to the next question? Does anyone want to talk about the complexities and how uncomfortable it is navigating in uncharted waters? Before we move on, I just wanted to share, I've been in that situation for a while. And if you guys can turn on your cameras, we definitely want to, if you have the capacity to do that, turn on your camera so we can get a look at you and get a face with a name. But I just wanted to share. So I've worked in the child welfare space for over 14 years. And in that space of child welfare, one of the things that I found to be true is that, one, there are not a lot of men in that space, which makes it very complex to work in that space because you're getting a male perspective. But the other piece to that is that there aren't a lot of Black men in that space, which I found myself, there in the child welfare system, and specifically in child protection, I went through a 6-year period where I was the only male at my agency, in my specific department, out of 70 people. 70, I went through that. And then 2 more males showed up. And then eventually they ended up going to something different. And so we had 3, and then they went on to something different. And once again, I found myself in that space alone. And so navigating that space that is female dominant was definitely complex, because thinking about I'm in a room with 20 women and they have their perspective on child welfare and child protection. And then I'm one male bringing my own individual perspectives. Man, you could just imagine what those conversations look like, right? Because they could not see it from my perspective, from my lens as a male. And so really trying to inform them about how I see things as a man in this space of child welfare was very, and I tell you, the part that was even more difficult is explaining to them how demoralizing it is for a man who wants to be in their children's lives, who and the mother has created barriers for them because the relationship didn't work. And having that discussion with caseworkers so that those caseworkers could actually implement the dad into the case plan. Because in most cases, I found that the dad was not implemented into the case plan unless he established paternity and he's paying child support. And that was, and so what does that look like when a man is trying to engage with his child? He's not allowed to engage with his child and he's paying child support. And then if he doesn't pay child support, he goes to jail. And so that disconnects him from the family dynamics. That is a systemic issue that I found in the child welfare system. And some people say it's broken. No, it was designed that way. It was designed that way. Me being in there for 14 years, I realized it. So I just wanted to just drop that in. Does anybody want to any more comments or want to elaborate on this as we go to the next question? All right, we're going to go to the next one. So
well, here, I've got a comment to make, if I may. We have a very robust and dynamic fatherhood program here in my agency. And we see this issue all the time. And the objective of our fatherhood program is to put the father back into the family equation and into the child's life, and to teach them how to be a better co-parent and a leader in their families, and especially in the child's life, because the child didn't have any say-so who their parents were or how they got here. So it ain't the child's fault. And what we do is we teach them some leadership skill, financial literacy, the whole nine. And we have classes for them and also arrange activities where the child is a centerpiece, but the father participates in those activities. But I want to say to your point, Pastor, that the system is designed to break up our families. It is. And a part of the work we do is, and most people don't know this in the state of Ohio, unless the man, if you're not married, unless the man petitions the state to be recognized as the father of the child, you have no rights. And even though you're paying child support, you're still behind the 8 ball. So we help them navigate through all of that, help them, if they owe child support, help them get on a plan that's acceptable to the child support agency. And also, as equally important, helping them get their driving privileges back. Because if you owe child support, your license can be suspended. And if your license is suspended, it hampers your ability to get a job. So it's a vicious cycle. So I would encourage all of us on the call, because we know some folks that are in this position. Do whatever you can to help them get connected to a fatherhood program in your area if you have one. If not, work with them to try to help them navigate through some of these issues that are preventing them to find a job, first of all, and preventing them from being an active participant in their child's life. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing that. That is so real. Anyone else before we move on?
Just a short point is that one of the challenges, we were talking about uncharted territories, as we're working with clients or men, it's important that we make sure they understand that there is a way out. There is a pathway, because in working with men over the years, a lot of them say, you know what, forget it. I'm buried too far. Like Jay elaborated, my license is suspended. I can't do anything, but there's a pathway. There is a way out, and it's our job oftentimes. And we can get this we're not going to give you, we can't give you $100,000 to pay all your back child support, but we can figure out a pathway that you can move on and move forward in your existence, as opposed to throwing your hands up and giving up. So, you know, it's a challenge for us in a lot of different regards.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Jay and Kerry, for bringing some insight and perspective on that. It's definitely something that we really need to we grapple with as men, and we really need to pay attention to how the system is designed, and create that network to navigate through it. So expanding further on this question, one of our registrants responded from our member agency, Pathway Inc. I am driven to serve. Our community relies on the people of goodwill who are competent in their craft. Pursuing this noble mission makes it easier for me to wake up enthusiastically each day. On any given day, we often wake up full of opportunities and hope for people we serve. This question is, what steps or process do you use in your daily regimen that keeps you focused on the mission for your work, your role, and your purpose within your field? So what steps or process do you use in your daily regimen throughout the day that keeps you focused on your mission, for your work, your role, and your purpose within your field? Someone we haven't heard from yet. So what are you doing to get through the day-to-day? Nobody asked Benjamin?
I just would like to, you know, as an HR person, I have asked that question to people, you know, what brings you to work today, you know, kind of thing, just to greet them in the morning. And I'm always troubled by the people that say, well, I'm here for a paycheck. Because you can go anywhere and get a paycheck, you know, and there's other less stressful environments. And, you know, maybe they're joking, maybe they're not, but you know, for me, it's just that opportunity to make an impact and support the people that are on the front lines doing the work and things like that. You know, I mean, it's an opportunity to truly to make a difference. And, you know, so for me, that's my why, but, you know, it is important to have one. And I think people need to, you know, just keep that in perspective. And as men, you know, a lot of times when people look to us, you know, when you're not in a majority of a group, people tend to look at you differently. They focus on you differently. And you know, as men, we're drastically outnumbered in community action. So, you know, the women look at us differently, and they look at us and they watch us, and they're looking to hear what we say and what we do. And it's an opportunity to make an impact if we can communicate our why. You know, if we can share that, it can make an impact.
Thank you for sharing that. Real quick, I just wanted to share when you're talking about steps or process. One of the things that I do when I wake up in the morning.
Mr. Witherspoon, you have a hand raised.
Okay, let me see who is. I don't see the hand, but
Mr. Williams.
Okay, Mr. Williams, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to make a comment kind of on what you were saying. For me, it's more so about, you know, because I think about, you know, calling in every day a lot of times just to take a break or whatnot. But for me, really, it's about the staff that I oversee and just wanting to see them have success. So that's really what drives me. I mean, I'm not on the front lines like that, actually dealing with our, you know, working with our participants in our programs, but as a director over our department, it's just wanting to see my staff and team grow professionally, personally, and that's really what, you know, continues to push me to come into work every single day. So, you know, that's been my passion for a long while, and you know, that's what keeps me going through all of the, you know, struggles and the issues that we deal with on a consistent basis. as it sits right now, it's enough to keep me going.
Thank you for sharing that, Antonio. Brent, I keep looking at you, man. I feel like there's this bubble of information that you have that you're waiting to literally throw out there. So I'm gonna give you some space here, man. I feel like you have some stuff for us.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so what Mr. Williams was saying, it was just sparking, and then obviously what Kerry was sharing as well, and you too, Mr. Witherspoon, is I think what we all kind of have in common is that passion to be more selfless than selfish, and whatever regimen or whatever background that you come from. I know for me, a lot of why I do what I do is from personal experiences, and that has translated into, man, to be honest with you, back in 2014, accidentally coming into the Community Action Partnership program as an employee. I was coming in for a PIP recert, and I had graduated out of the PIP program because I was working like almost 80 hours a week in a warehouse packing boxes. And at the time, I think she was 6 or 7 years old, my daughter, that because we'll go back a little bit to what you were talking about men and child support and being in the home. I've been raising my daughter for the last 11 years by myself. And she said one night, Dad, because I was working like 10, 12-hour shifts, I wouldn't get home until 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening. And we're just sitting there one day hanging out, and she said, Dad, can you spend more time at home? And I didn't know that she had that much at 6 or 7 years old, just that much foresight or thought pattern, where she can articulate that to me to a point where she's like, hey, Dad, like, you're my best friend. I want you to be at home. And I went in for that PIP recert, and the intake worker knew who I was from, our past. And she said, we're hiring. And 2 weeks later, I got a job at CAP, and May of 2014, I've went from being an intake worker for the PIP program to caseworker for a transitional, caseworker for rapid rehousing, coordinator for rapid rehousing, caseworker for the family shelter. I've done almost every job in Greene County where I'm located at, for all the services that we provide. And I don't think it was anything of a career step that I was trying to make. I think it was just a curiosity. I want to see how this works. I want to see how this affects other people, because I've had friends and family who's been through, and then myself as well, who've been through that system. And we have that. I think this is another thing we all have in common, is we always want to help out the little guy, man, because we know how it's like and we see how it's like. So in the midst of doing that, it gives us more than just coming in and working 40 hours a week and receiving a paycheck, and just that gratitude of walking into your household and you can turn the lights on and off and you say, hey, my bills are paid this month. I know that a lot of us are overworked and underpaid, but we don't do it for the money. At least I don't. I do it for the passion. The side jobs take care of the steak and Jordans that my daughter likes. But this job is what feeds me internally. So I got all that out now.
Hey, brothers, I see some of your faces, and I see, as we're having this conversation, I can see your minds are spinning, and I'm like, listen, this is what this space is for, because we need to share this information with each other, man. This is how we grow and sharpen the iron and continue. Not only that, but when we're running empty as individuals, this is the space where we can get poured into so that we can keep going, man. So I appreciate this space and you sharing that, man. That's huge as a single father, man. People don't talk about single fathers. That's not a normal conversation in most spaces, but man, that is, we talk about single moms, but man, being a single father and with a daughter, man. So
it's tough. Challenging.
I can
What
only
warning?
imagine.
Yeah.
I can only imagine. So going on to this next question, because I want to make sure that I am cognizant of time. In the nonprofit and community action agency sector, we face many constituents who are discouraged or feel hopeless in their quest for quality service and programming that will help them elevate their circumstances. And one of our partners at the Community Action Akron Summit shared his why for his work, and we'd love to get your thoughts on the why. And what drives you to fight through the bureaucracy and layers of leadership. He shared, improving maternal and child health is my why. Let me repeat that. Improving maternal and child health is my why. Their well-being determines the health of the next generation and can impact future public health challenges for families, communities, and healthcare systems. Healthy People's 2023 is the site, is what is cited. The hope to provide support to one more family each day and putting an end to the unnecessary system barrier, housing, food, transportation, employment, to healthy moms and babies keeps me going. So that is what was shared in regards to keeping them going. In addition to serving issues plaguing our community, post-pandemic violence, housing crisis, economic security, one or more participants from renter mentor.
He was on
I think Lawrence froze up. We'll have to try to work on that.
number four, Rudy, Kerry, number 4.
Okay. As Brother Lawrence was saying, in addition to several issues plaguing our communities, post-pandemic violence, housing crisis, economic security. One of our participants from Renter Mentor pointed out that fighting systematic racism to move Black people forward within housing and other areas of oppression of inequality. The pandemic has forced us in a clever way to have more collaborative conversations about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging or access. So our point here is, let's talk a little bit about some strategies for addressing social determinants of health within our space. So what are you or you and your agency doing to support DE&I, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, and leveling the playing field for low-income Ohioans? And I can start a little bit by DE&I is a nice little acronym that's kind of been put out there in the community and the agencies. But I think in order for it to be effectively dealt with, diversity, equity, and inclusion, there has to be some agency initiative to even discuss it and define it. And our agency fortunately has gone through some training, and we've brought some outsiders in that kind of would relay this issue and kind of break it down a little bit, because we can move around just like Brother Brent was saying, as we're going our day to day and doing what we have to do, because I have things that I'm working for. I'm working for my family. I'm working for myself, or whatever my goals are, that you may not be looking specifically, is this really affecting diversity, equity, and inclusion? So I think just by having the agency adopt some type of programming or some type of awareness, or even taking it upon ourselves to get involved in programs like what we're doing today. So You back with us, Brother Lawrence? And just
Yes, I am. I do apologize. We're having some internet issues here in our
No
building.
problem.
Please bear with me. So when looking at this, let's talk about what is your agency doing to support the DEI initiatives? That is very important. And I know people feel like it is now a cliche or people are using that. I know from the pandemic to now, people, because of the George Floyd incident and because of the Breonna Taylor and some of these other incidents, people are now starting to really implement over the last 3 years the DEI initiative to say they're checking the box. Let's be real. I know a lot of organizations that are saying, "Oh, we're going to do this DEI. We're going to get a DEI director or a chair of diversity, equity, and inclusion, so that we can check this box," but not really doing the work. It is front facing. So externally they see the work, but internally the work is not being done. So the question is really what are you and your organization doing to support the DEI? And let's add something to the DEI. So diversity, equity, and inclusion. But what about belonging? So we had a meeting here and I threw out belonging. DEIB, because the reality is you can have a diverse organization, you can have equity, you can have inclusion, but even with inclusion, do people feel like they belong? So let's talk about that.
Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head with respect to checking the box. And, you know, you're right. A lot of different agencies and corporate employers and everybody else, they have all these fancy titles, these people who are in these positions, but the real issue isn't so much do you have a person in there or are you doing training, but what's the result of it? You know, the training thing needs to be an ongoing thing. You can't just do it once and say, hey, we took care of our responsibility, because there's a lot of subcategories inside of that. So the training's got to be ongoing. And you have to look and see what is the training registering? Is it making any impact at all? You know, you can train, but if it doesn't affect any change, you haven't done anything except waste a bunch of people's time. So I think those are really the things you have to look at. And in our agency, we are working on that right now to roll out a program where the training is ongoing, where we can measure its impact. And really that's how you have to do it, because you're right. Otherwise, you're just checking a box and the box is taking you nowhere.
Absolutely. Anyone else care to chime in on that piece? All right, I want to get to this question because we have a break coming up. Lastly, in a recent study by the London School of Economics and Political Science, in which it is an important report from the global perspective about public administration, their article, "The Flip Side of Segregation, Men in Typical Female Jobs," the article goes on to say, compared with the increased participation of women in male-dominated occupations, the presence of men in female-dominant occupation remains low. So the question is, what can we do, or what should we do about recruiting more men to these important roles in human services field, where we know that the male presence is equally important for professionals and supporting our constituents. So what can we do as men to recruit in these spaces? Yes, sir, Brent, Brother Brent.
I believe, and I don't think there's a real statistic on it. It's just from, you know, being a male and growing up with a lot of male ideology, is that I think sometimes we need to plug in with some of our male friends or anyone who may be looking towards getting into this social service field to get rid of some of those stigmas that come along with it. I think sometimes we get put in a box that we're supposed to be blue collared, hardworking, get your hands dirty type of men. And I think sometimes that aligns with getting into our feelings. And I've been criticized from friends or other males because of the type of job that I have. say that I'm in some type of feelings job. You're always talking about your feelings. You're always talking about their feelings, and the label soft coincides with it. And some of the strongest men I know are the ones that are that internalize their feelings, and they're self-aware of what's going on with themselves, so they can help one another get through maybe the loss of a loved one, or the loss of a relationship, or the loss of a job, because everybody mourns from loss, and it doesn't have to be death. It doesn't have to be a loss of a relationship. It can be a loss of a job. And then I'll talk to a buddy and say, hey man, we might have a job opening that can pay you close to what you were making before, but you're going to sit down and have conversations with people that are going through real life situations. That's going to involve you to interact with your feelings, to be able to help that person work through what they're going through at the time. And they're like, no, I don't want to do that, because it kind of puts them on the spot. So I think sometimes if we could possibly rid that stigma of this type of work for men isn't where we belong, but I think this is in a lot of ways right where we belong.
Thank you. And I believe Keith, thank you, Brent. Keith, you had your hand up.
Yeah, and I do apologize for not having the an operative camera, but this basis goes off of what you said as far as how we can get people, or men particularly, recruited into this kind of field. I'm in Sandusky, and this is a predominantly a factory-oriented area, and I grew up in a factory. My father worked in a factory for 30 years. My grandfather did for 30 years. And that's what's known. But as gentlemen like yourself and myself, if they see more examples to where we can do this, just be the example. That's the easiest way that we can recruit men to come into this kind of field.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, fellas, for definitely sharing this insight. I think we are at a breaking point here. We're going to take a 10-minute break. Please stay with us. We have some more in-depth conversations, some really good stuff coming up. We're going to take right now, it'll be a little bit less than 10 minutes. We're going to come back, and if you could come back at about 11:09, so that we can get started right back at 11:10. Brother Kerry is going to lead us back in to the second part of this, continue to talk about the whole man. So does anyone else have anything before we?
All right. We'll see you. We'll see you at 11:09. Welcome back. Welcome back. Hopefully you had some time to reflect on that morning discussion and using your mental strength in the workplace. And we're going to continue this discussion and welcome Lawrence back to lead the discussion on the whole man. So again, good stuff, powerful stuff, man. Lawrence, here you go.
Thank you, Brother Kerry. Yeah, as we were in break, and I, was just processing our mental strength. Going into this next part, I just wanted to share with you all one of the things that I realized in many spaces that I've been in, and then, teaching emotional intelligence throughout the country, is that we're expected to be strong as men. And people don't feel like there are certain situations where we're in and spaces we're in where they're just like, you're resilient. You're resilient. That word is used and thrown out a lot. You're resilient. And what I realized just talking to other individuals, and even in my own personal experiences, is we don't have a choice but to be resilient. We don't have a choice. That's not an option for us as men. And at least that's my perspective. And so we don't share the what we're thinking about in capacity because it makes us vulnerable, and so we have to be as strong as we possibly can. And so there are times where you get exhausted being resilient. And so that's where we have to tap into our mental strength and continue to push through some of the adversities and situations we're going through. So I just wanted to share that. Like, people always use that word, like, man, all the things you've been through, you're resilient, you're resilient. I'm like, man, I didn't have a choice. It was either do this or die off in my community. So I just wanted to share that. And I know many of you brothers, man, are probably feeling that same way. We didn't have a choice. We had to grind or we wouldn't be where we are now. We had no choice. Regardless of the barriers, the support we may or may not have had, we had to press through anyway. So, okay, brothers. So that was a good discussion. We're going to switch gears and talk about our personal endeavors and group mentoring in areas that are important to all of us, building or enhancing our work-life balance and prioritizing generational wealth, healthcare, wellness, and self-care. Now, listen, I'm gonna tell you guys up front as we go into this, I've done several 5-0B assessments, Stratton assessments, leadership assessments. And the one thing that my peers and I identified is that I am not good with work-life balance. And so we're gonna really talk about that. So in the Forbes report, it says why we should help men find better work-life balance. There's a lot of talk about an unhealthy messaging many girls and women receive about gender stereotypes and how it can hold us back. Much less attention is focused on an unhealthy messaging for boys and men receive to work at all costs, to grind it out no matter what, to devote time to our families, and making sure it fits around our corporate schedule. Men are less likely than women to ask for, never mind demand flexibility. Think about that. We are less likely to demand or ask for flexibility. The result has been some dads report being even more stressed out than moms. They hold themselves to a high standard. Instead of saying we hold ourselves to a higher standard for involvement in the home life than their fathers did, withholding themselves to the same standards in terms of work. So we hold ourselves to the same standard that we saw. So let us talk about it. Some of us are parenting. Some of us are journeying life with significant others, or taking care of aging parents, or managing blended families, or you are simply climbing the ladder of mobility and find yourself missing out on other important relationships or connections. So the question is, share with us how you are using your tools to effectively balance your time between work, life, and personal space. I can tell you up front, as we start this, I'm not doing a great job. So it's open up for everyone to kind of share.
I'd like to share. So I think this is a journey that I've been on for a long while, and trying to make sure that I keep it on the forefront of my mind, and making and having that understanding that the work is going to be here. It's always there's never gonna be a point where you're really done. So you really have to make sure that you are taking care of yourself and having that work-life balance, because if you don't, then you're not really going to be good to anyone else. I started realizing that with, previous points in my career, was on the brink of divorce because of that sort of thing. Just so focused on work and devoting so much time. I mean, I have both my parents in the home, but my dad worked 2 jobs. I saw him on the weekends, and that was it. And after a while, started seeing myself kind of go through that same process. When my kids got older and started, mentioning things like, "Oh, Dad, you come into my event, but wait a minute, you got to work. Let me guess, you got to work," or something like that, right? So when those things started happening, it really started putting me in the mindset, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be doing all this to be, supporting my family, but I'm never there. I'm never around. I'm never, So that was a hindrance in my relationship with my kids, hindrance in the relationship with my wife, and really had to take a step back to really look at what was important. And, going through all of those things, realizing how stressed out I was, realizing how bad my health was getting, realizing, all of those things. And it's a constant everyday struggle for me to force myself to leave here at a, reasonable time. So, I guess I said all that to say that I'm on that journey. I've never really been good at it, but I'm really trying to force myself to be better and just trying to make sure I stick to a schedule, try to force myself to make sure I get here at the appropriate time. I worked it out with my boss to say, hey, if I get here at 7, I can leave at 4:30. That's still a 9.5 hour day, which I should be, I'm getting to a point now that I filled my staff, so I can get to that space. So I can get to a normal 8-hour workday or 8.5 hour, whatever that looks like, but trying to make sure that I stay focused, and that's the number one priority, because if I don't take care of my mental health and if I don't have that work-life balance, then I'm really no good to anyone else. And it's just all it's really going to do is put you in a worse situation, and ultimately the people that you're trying to support, them in a worse situation because you're not where you need to be. Sorry, that was a little long-winded, but.
So I want to jump in right behind you, Tony. There's a few things that you mentioned, and I've had conversations with some of the older men in my family and my network and my social circle. And a lot of men generationally find more value at work. They're appreciated. The paycheck is good. Some of them work in multiple jobs because, that's the breadwinner mentality that has been passed down generationally. And so I've had to kind of reshift my own thinking in terms of not always, prioritizing being there for the family in a financial sense. Like you mentioned with the kids, they get older, they get sarcastic. Oh, well, I'll see you when I see you. I've been in positions where I would see my dad on the way going to school because he was working third shift to, win the bread. And so that kind of positioned me to shift myself with my own family, that I need to not only be there financially for support, but I need to be there with my time. Being a presence as a man is just as valuable as being the financial support as a man. Oftentimes men, they go to work, they come home, they eat, go to bed. It's a vicious cycle. You know what I mean? We've probably all experienced that, especially as you climb the ladder and you get into more salaried positions where you're not punching a clock. You're just kind of working. You're barely thinking about getting something to eat. All those kind of things come into play because the demand of the work is steadily growing. You're being pulled in multiple different directions at home and at work. It's a 24-hour-a-day job being a Black man sometimes. And we don't rest like we should. Our blood pressure becomes a problem, and that leads to all kind of other health problems. I'm sure I'm speaking to a lot of people right now, myself included. I'm speaking from experience here. What I found is helpful for me to do is kind of a daily to-do list. I'm using 2 different calendars. I got a work calendar. I have a family calendar. Those kind of things keep me organized. It helps my time management. And it also gives me a sense of accomplishment. I know that what I'm going to work, I'm doing purposeful work, but I'm also able to see what I'm doing. It's not just a chaotic situation where I'm just tackling a bunch of tasks. And then as I'm driving home, whatever time that might be, I get to finally reflect, but I'm in traffic, you know what I mean? And I'm supposed to be paying attention to the road, but I'm still trying to unpack everything that I just went through at work, trying to change hats and go into dad mode, because I got sports right behind that, and I'm trying to worry about all these different things in a short amount of time. So I found that using things like the planner app in Outlook, using dual calendars, different things like that, even going old school and writing down what I need to do so that I can see things in multiple places. You know, I come from a generation where writing stuff down helps me remember it, and I still use that to this day. So, you know, even when it comes to scheduling doctor's appointments, if I need to write that type of stuff down just so that I can see it and prepare myself for it, so that I can kind of detach myself from the rigors of the day-to-day 9-to-5 activities, just so that I can be there to support the family off the clock. So that's my take on those kinds of things, and just kind of putting that out there for some of the other participants to kind of maybe start to put into practice as well. I found it to be very helpful, you know. So just sharing that, hoping that that kind of helps somebody else out.
Thank you, Chris. I think Keith, you were unmuted. Did you want to chime in here?
Well, the only thing that really helps me is I honestly, every morning, I have my own little praise break. I turn my little gospel on, and my supervisor, I tell you, there are days I'm on top of the world, and it helps me deal with the people that I deal with on a daily basis, because you guys are supervisors for the most part, but I deal with people on a daily, every day, day in and day out. So sometimes it does wear on you a little bit. And I am a single father. I have a 16-year-old at home as well. So it's hard sometimes to go from being the intake specialist and then turning around to being dad and being the father figure and the man that you trying to present yourself as a good man to your son. So it's difficult. It's just hard. And I'm not going to lie, I still haven't found a balance yet. I think a lot of us have it. And I'm looking for any advice that I could possibly have and get, honestly.
Okay, yeah.
I like to
thank you. I
chime
think
in.
Kevin.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Thank you. Thank you. I'm kind of in a different stage than I guess a lot of you guys are. I put in my work, you know. I have established a history with my wife. She knows, you know, what kind of a provider I've been. And so now she really goes out of her way to make sure that, you know, when I come home, I have a man cave that she kind of guards. I have 2 grandkids who are, you know, live with me, who live with us. And, you know, my wife is very protective of me down in my man cave. Although the 2-year-old gets down every, you know, once in a while, you know, I let her stay down for a minute or two. But yeah, so I guess what I'm trying to say is, you know, you younger guys, you know, I understand, you know, what you're, you know, going through. And there was a time where I worked 2 full-time jobs, and I was just, you know, I felt like I was removed from the family. I mean, you know, they were doing their thing and I was just working. And so, like I said, I put in the time. I'm at a point right now where, you know, I can see retirement for full-time work. Okay. Cause it looks like I'll be working forever. You know, what can you say? But, you know, I just, you know, my word of encouragement to you younger guys is that it will get better. It will get better, and just hang in there. That's all I have to say.
Thank you so much. So, man, we're gonna go off script a little bit, and I'm looking at this time, and the time is stressing me out now, because I'm like, man, we're getting in depth in space here, and we had such a phenomenal question, and I definitely, it's in the chat, and I definitely have to ask this question and pose this to our space right now. It says, what do you do in a situation where a man is in a toxic environment at home and doesn't want to come home and be present? Let's talk about it, fellas. I've been married for 23 years, and my wife and I counsel a lot of individuals, and this question is so real. We definitely want to talk about it.
Brother Lawrence, you open up a touchy topic, but
It is.
yeah, but maybe I'll open the door because I've gotten past it. I was married 17 years. It ended in divorce, and I've been married 11 years now, and it's been nothing but happiness. But during that first term, when you're not feeling the support, or when your efforts are being what I felt was circumvented, you're going to work, and I had a job that paid very, very well, but I took a second job just to get extra stuff. I think that the bottom line was communication. And when there's mutual communication along with mutual respect, you can kind of get somewhere. And the problem that I had in that first situation, those things were broken down so low that there was no building up. And so, and I like to say I got out of the frying pan, but I went back in the grease again and got married again. But I came out nice and golden brown this time, and I didn't have any burnt edges. And but the issue, even with this, my current marriage is just communication. Things we've been talking about, is intentional that we do something together. It's intentional that work-life balance has to happen. Something quarterly, we go on a trip. Every quarter we go somewhere. The children, we both have children from our previous marriages. Same thing. Children remember time more so than things. So you guys that are working all this time to get the money to buy this thing, they remember your time more than things. And so, again, it's a tough deal. We got a couple hands up, brother Williams.
Yeah, yes, you mentioned you mentioned being married for 17 years, obviously going through some trials and tribulations, and then divorce, and then kind of going back into it. Been in there 11 years now. When you think back on that, was that more so? You mentioned you had kids and all of that kind of stuff. So 17 years of marriage and then divorce. Was that more so of just less distractors, meaning that you and your wife, you and your new wife, y'all get married, you don't have those I guess extra the kids and all the other things that can kind of like create issues, but between the two of you in that marriage? Was it more so that, or was it more so things that you learned and how to deal with things going into that second marriage? Because I know for me, I said that me and my wife ever got divorced, I ain't never getting married again. Like that ship didn't sail. And after we'd have been married 23 years now, and you done jump back in the saddle after 17. So I'm just wondering.
I said the same thing. Mm-hmm. I said the same thing. Not going back, never. But when I met someone that we had like thoughts, when we had similar situations that we went through, the children were still an issue because she had children, we had children. They weren't grown, and so there had to be an understanding of, and I guess the easiest way to put it, that our foundation became solid before we moved toward this second marriage. A lot of things, like in sales, they teach you to ask the hard questions. We had to ask those hard questions. Okay, what about this situation? What about that situation? What are your views on this and that? And in that first situation, yeah, I thought I was in love and it just didn't work out. But when I look back, it was that foundation was weak. And so since that foundation was weak, when things come up, you're not able to deal with them. So this go around, working in the industry that we work in currently, what's it, the big elephant in the room? We don't make a ton of money. I made more money when I was like Jay, when I made more money when I was working in banking and finance, way more. But we're doing it because, like Kevin says, you have a calling. We have a calling to do this stuff. And this is why we do it. And so moving to this new relationship, that was a discussion. Hey, this is what I do. And she embraced that. And so when I have to work over or do something on a Saturday or go to Columbus to hang out with Yvonne, it's not an issue. Have fun, have a good time, and I'll hold things down here. So again, it's a challenge. I think Chris had his hand up earlier, or someone.
Yeah.
I was actually applauding the comments, but as more and more comments have come in, I definitely got some thoughts on a gentleman who said he remarried. I'll be married for 11 years, actually 2 Fridays from now. We'll be celebrating 11 years. And it's a challenge, coming from as a younger man, and I'm, just guessing, a lot of us got married as younger men. We can say I've been married for 17, 20 some years. So we subtract that number of years from our current age and we see how we got married in our youth. And as we mature, our wives mature, sometimes our, likes and dislikes tend to grow in different directions. And, we find different sets of friends. We might change career paths. And as the gentleman said, he really wasn't, trying to get married again. But I think that it's, approaching it with a different perspective in our more mature age, where the things that we struggled through, now we're able to have conversations like the one we're having currently. We're able to have those with somebody else. The foundation is more solid. You've been through a little bit more personally and professionally. And, it's a little easier to find your voice through those struggles. And so when you approach the dating scene again and considering getting serious, you're in a better position to have those, more critical conversations that as a younger man, where you may not have found your voice yet, you may not have been comfortable approaching those topics, which may have been the demise of many marriages. That piece, that communication is there. I told a gentleman today that people want to see change. They might want you to change some of your ways, but might not be willing to do the work to change themselves. And that becomes a day-to-day conflict, and so not that I'm, considering divorce. I know that we all know that marriage is a challenge from both partners. But I can understand, getting back into it at a more mature age and being able to have those conversations and reset that foundation and essentially learning from those traumatic situations that you experienced, that led to the divorce, being able to reset and reconnect, is actually probably more healthy. Sometimes we can't really undo a lot of things in our marriage and it just gets swept under the rug year after year. We kind of bury ourselves in different things, sports, ministry, music, fraternity life, just hanging out with the fellas, or even going off into the man cave. The game is on, so I'm occupied for the next 3 hours where I don't have to be bothered with those things that I know are lingering in the background. So, I'm glad that we did have that perspective you know, from the more experienced gentlemen, you know, that's very meaningful to me to hear.
Yes, I appreciate you. Thank you for sharing. I know Paul presented this, and I definitely want to leave space for him if he want to share. But as we're talking about this, man, this is a really serious question, and one of the things that I do when surveying men going into premarital counseling, I ask, what is it that you want from your marriage? And 95% of the men that I asked this question to said respect. Respect. And underneath respect comes all those other things. If you respect me, you'll communicate with me. If you respect me, you will honor me. If you respect me, you'll listen to what I have to say, see my perspective. If you respect me, you'll support me. So respect seemed to be the common thread in that. And so I just wanted to open it up. I know, Carl, you posed this question to us, and you actually took us to this place that I love being in, because this is a serious conversation, and it's something that we all grapple with more often than not, and not willing to share. So I just wanted to leave this space open just to see if you had anything you wanted to elaborate on.
I say that because many of you are in way different positions than I'm in. And, you know, I'm dealing with this literally like right now. I'm literally dealing with this. And it's been very difficult to be present because of the environment that I'm in. And I sat and I have toddlers, okay? My oldest daughter's turning 5 tomorrow. So I have 3 children and I have 1 set of twins. And it's been really difficult because, you know, I had to do all of the working because she stayed at home with the children because daycare was going to kill us. You know, daycare is extremely expensive. So here I am working a 9 to 5. I'm a musician, so I play various places. In school, you know, hopefully this is my last semester in grad school. And just a lot of stuff going on, and to come home and you're, I mean, miserable. Like I was just, I just hit my desk and dropped my camera. Excuse me. But it was, I would come home and be miserable. Like I would not want to be there. I mean, I have all girls. Okay, so you know they're daddy's girls. Like they just, you know, and especially my oldest daughter, she really cleaves to me, and it's been hard, like really hard, because their mother just makes life hard for me for no reason. Like, I mean, they've never been without, they don't even know what that's like. And I get nothing, like little to nothing in return. There's no respect. There's no, I mean, it's just like, dang, I don't even know I don't even know what this is. Like this was, and it makes life hard. Like it makes being a parent hard. It makes being a father hard, you know, because she's not teaching them anything. She's not, you know, I mean, I'm telling you, I'm in a very, very hard place. So I wanted to pose that question just to see, like, what are you supposed to do? Like, I want to be a good father. Like, I want to be in my children's life. I asked God for all 3 of them, and he gave me my heart's desire, but I can't enjoy them because of this environment. So I just wanted to see what your thoughts
Um,
Can I pose a question to Kerry? I feel like the question I want to pose to you could possibly help Brother Carl as well. Is the 17 years that you spent in your first marriage, do you, and I think me and you have talked about this before. I think I asked you this question at the event that we were at in person. Is that, and I think you're gonna give a great answer, is that the 17 years prior to your 11-year marriage prepare you for where you're at in your 11-year marriage up to this date?
Yes, it did prepare me. One of the things that was most important I have girls too, Carl. My wife and I had a daughter together, and she had a daughter when we were married, my first wife. And I think I was a great father, and I still am. You know, to the girls, and I've become a good father to my current wife's children. And you know, the answer to your question, Carl, is a tough one. You know, there's not a cookie cutter answer for that. Now, but the one thing you can be, and I used to teach some fatherhood classes as well. One thing you can be is always a good father to your girls. You can always be that, you know, being present, being fair, being the best you can be. I have a habit of bringing up my dad. He's not with us anymore, but he told me, you will always be father to your daughter. My daughter's name is Ellie. So you will always be Ellie's father, but you may not always be so-and-so's wife, husband. She may not always be your wife. So that's just life. This is from a man with a third-grade education. So control the things you can control. For the folks who've been in the military, controllable situation, non-controllable situation. Control what you can control. You know, you can do a good job at work. You do a good job at work. Those few outlets that you get, take advantage of them. You know, music. I call myself a musician, but I'm horrible at every instrument I play. But you know, if you enjoy it, you enjoy it. The way things aren't the way things always are going to be. And that was my mindset as I was going through what I was going through. And then I was younger. I hate saying that I'm older. I think that was Chris's thing, talking about us old guys. But I guess 60 means you're old.
I got to jump in, brother. I think I used the word mature.
Mature. You know, but we, you know, you just got to take it day to day at sometimes. You know, if you wake up and you breathe and you know your name, okay, you got another chance. You got another chance, and you'll be surprised at the turns these things can take. I mean, I'm not a marital counselor on the level maybe Brother Lawrence is, but and he maybe could elaborate. But the way things aren't the way things always are going to be, and these turns happen abruptly sometimes.
Yes, I would. So this is a much deeper conversation, and I'm hoping that OUCAN will provide us another opportunity to revisit this, because there's quite a few questions that we didn't get to, but man, this one was very important, and we value this question, and this is what this forum is actually for. And Kerry, I love that you talked about not being able to control things. I always say this phrase, don't try to control uncontrollable things. And one of the things I recognize is there are some things we think we control, but we really can't control. And so you got to back away from them and kind of let them work themselves through whatever process it needs to. I always say this, there's 4 people we encounter in this world: those who add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And so what I always really evaluate is those, I look at the people who add to my life, who multiply to my life, who subtract, and those who divide. And I categorize these people. And then, you know, what I realized, even from a natural and spiritual perspective, there are seasons for things. And you got to know when seasons are up in certain situations. And that sounds harsh, but the reality is there's a winter, spring, summer, and autumn. And you got to, and as these seasons change, you have to be cognizant of and aware of these changes in these seasons. And when a season's up, you know when a season's up. And so what you have to do is prepare for the next season. That looks like putting away your summer clothes and packing them away and pulling out your winter clothes and preparing for fall or winter. And so I just wanted to definitely share that There are two things, and I know we are short for time. And I want to pose something for you all, but with all that said, this has been phenomenal, fellas. I appreciate sharing this with you all. Real quick, I want us to go around, and then on a more lighter note, going out of this this forum discussion, just share, each one of us, if we could just share something that maybe we don't know about each other. I know there's a lot we don't know about each other, but just share something that would surprise us to know about you. And I would like for us to all share something that would really surprise us that we don't know about you. If we can go around, you can go at will on this. I know that's maybe a difficult question.
All right, I'll start it off. I am a 46-year-old single father of a 16-year-old son. I also have a stepdaughter, his sister from his mother, who still looks at me as her father as well. I am a college graduate of Franklin University, and I am also a master mason, third-degree master mason as of right now. So, and I'm still progressing in my journey to the East. So that's just a small snippet of me.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. That was awesome.
I gave you something
Anyone
fun
else?
a couple of years ago during the pandemic. I wrote a play that actually got read on Kent State College radio. It was called A Friday Night in a Hotel Room. It was came out around Valentine's Day. So if you want that, let me know. I'll send it to you. It's a good read.
X-rated or no? Okay. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else?
I have a twin sister. How's that?
Wow. Okay.
Okay, so I'll go. I am the last of 12 children. Oh, and I have a gospel single out actually called It Shall Be Done.
Awesome.
I'm gonna check it out. I'll go next. So during the pandemic, when we were stuck in the house for the first few months, I was sitting in the kitchen, and I decided to call 3 other brothers that are actually in my ministry, and we decided to do an actual album as well during the pandemic, and it was released during the pandemic, and it's called The Collaborative, and it's called the Magnum Opus, and so it's on all social media platforms, and so I am a recording artist as well.
Awesome. I guess a number of years back, I used to play a lot of basketball, and I played in tournaments around the Midwest here. And I was mistaken as Dwayne Wade, and I did not tell them any different. And I signed autographs and everything, and but because I tried to tell them I wasn't Dwayne Wade, and they wouldn't believe me. And then I just went along with it, and then I ended up signing a whole lot of little kids' autographs, and had a kind of good time.
I'm going to piggyback on that. I am a high school boys varsity basketball coach, and we just finished youth camp last night, so I'm exhausted.
Thank you for sharing.
I guess. So I was a former walk-on football player at The Ohio State University. Married for 23 years and have 2 kids in college right now. My son plays college football. So.
Okay, I'll go next.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. So I'll go next. I am one of, I think, 6 children from a severely blended family. I have only one biological brother out of the other 4 siblings. And out of the 4 siblings, 3 of them, we don't share a mother or a father. But we all are all brothers and sisters. I am also, as well as Keith, a single dad of a 15-year-old daughter. And I just received my LLC for my real estate business that I've started. And I have successfully created an S Corp and put my daughter's name on to that S Corp as an employee of that LLC. And the goal is to, by the time she is 18 years old, at least a 700 or 750 credit score, and she can utilize the equity and assets from those properties to pay for school, to become a landlord herself, to sell the property and then pay for any school debt, or utilize that to start her own life. So someone had mentioned generational wealth, and I didn't really know what that term meant until I kind of got into it. And I'm kind of seeing the fruits of my labor kind of flourishing a little bit, or developing. I'm still at the foundation part, definitely.
Hey, congratulations with that, man. We look forward to seeing your continued work. And I think us as a community in this space would definitely support you however you need it. I'm down to support you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Anyone else? Anyone else before we close out that would like to share?
I'll just quickly say it's been, a massive pleasure to be here and to listen to everyone's stories and everyone's experiences. I'm probably pretty young for this space. I'm 26, but every single thing here is gold that I can learn to, and use to grow my family, grow my career, and grow myself as a better person. I've had a rough couple years growing myself and my family. I went to medical school for 2.5 years before I discovered that I don't want to be a doctor. I don't want to be in that space. That's just not for me. But hopefully with the lessons I've learned here today and moving forward with things like that, I can find a better space for myself that I can support my community and support my family. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Alex. And I want to share this with you. Even though you may be one of the youngest in this space, your perspective is absolutely valued. And I wish I had an opportunity to be a part of a forum like this at that age. I think I would be even further along than where I am if I had gentlemen like the ones that we are engaged with on today in my life at that time, where I really, really could have used it, So I'm very grateful as well. Anyone else? All right, I'm not sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Well, I guess
because my screen. Oh, go ahead, Kerry.
Okay, I would say we all want to thank you, Lawrence, for leading today's discussion, and we definitely appreciate you. And whether as a member and leader in family engagement, child advocacy, and policy. And I'm told our CEO has a special gift for you, so stay tuned. And like we said before, it's important for us to learn how we can expand the men's forum for years coming. So you look to hear from us going forward, that we're going to lean on you again, because like you said before, these topics are ones that definitely need more and more discussion.
Thank you. When you guys get a chance, please, there's a link in the chat click that link and complete that survey. There's a link in the chat. Make sure you grab that link and complete that. Thank you, Brother Kerry and Rudy. OUCAN. I really appreciate this. I think I've gotten just as much as I brought to this table. I want to communicate with you all, brothers. Continue. Let's reach out to each other. I'm going to do my best to get everyone's information that's been in this space, because I want to keep I want to make sure we stay connected, and as we continue to build this and give other men opportunity to fill this space, I encourage everyone to do that. I wanted to leave you all with this real quick. It says, and this is just something you can with values and behaviors from your family, friends, and community. Given everything you collected, what would you recycle? What would you use again? And what would you throw away? I just wanted to definitely share that. On next week, this recording will be available on the OUCAN, Ohio, OUCAN.com. So make sure that you go to the OUCAN website to make sure that you can grab this recording and revisit this discussion. Kerry, if there's anything else, I don't have anything else. But thank you, fellas, again.
That concludes our forum for today. Thank you, everybody, for being part of it, and we all look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you, Rudy. Thank you all. Thank you, OUCAN. God bless.